Shane McCarthy of BlueChief Social. Welcome to Irish Startup TV.
Thank you very much, it's a pleasure to be here.
So we're down here in the Nexus campus in UL, in the University of Limerick. So you're headquartered here?
Yeah, pretty much. We moved out here about 2 years ago now.
Okay.
So we're here for another year to 18 months. A brilliant location. You're right beside the developers, the new up and coming talent in UL, and right beside the marketing and entrepreneurship students. So it's just an ideal location for any startup in Limerick.
Tell us a little bit about BlueChief. What do you do?
We're on track to be Ireland's best social media agency. So we started up really social media maybe 12 months ago properly. We started off doing software and it didn't really go as well as we wanted it to go. But in the meantime we started getting big traction on social media. So we set up a social media agency basically, and now we do a lot of work with multinationals, third levels, high potential startups and really high value SMEs across Ireland. So we would have clients in the UK, in America and in Ireland as well at the moment. Strategy, consultancy and a lot of training, on-site training, off-site training. And the primary then is account management. So we'll actually take over people's accounts, we'll walk, talk and act like them, be their brand personality online and get them the traction they need in whatever interval they want to know.
I remember when I met you first, you were building technology and you found that you were so good at doing the social media for your technology business that you ended up becoming a social media business.
Pretty much, I think they call it pivot.
Yeah.
So it was simple, we started developing software solutions and the problem was we didn't have the experience. So we weren't iterating fast enough, we didn't build the team that we needed to complete the solutions that we wanted to develop. So we're the software company with 4 people in it and 1 developer. Now we've a social media agency with 8 people in it, 1 developer and 7 people who can do social media. So we learned our lesson the hard way. We had some great solutions, we still have people contacting us about the software we were developing, but that's parked and will be parked until probably somewhere next June to September until we get the appropriate traction we need financially. So the goal really is to go back to software, but we're going to create our own cash reserve in the meantime so that when we want to go towards whether it's funding or not, that we will have our own pot of money to go forward to investors with and the ball will be in our court.
It's a lot easier. We talked to John Flynn of Act Venture Capital the other week and he said when you look for money you get advice, and when you look for advice you look for money. So if you can be self-sustaining, it's going to put you in a very strong position. Yeah,
there's a lot of startups across Ireland. Primarily, if you want to focus on one, teamwork. I think everybody knows about them. And
the boys down in Cork.
Yeah, Peter Coffinger. They're an unbelievable startup, and I mean we want to take their model. We want to bootstrap this, and we have bootstrapped from day one. We have turned down investment multiple times, from angel investment to actually talking to VCs when we were doing the software. But it's not what we want to do. We created a company to run the company, and I'm not saying we won't take investment in the future. We will, but if we do, we'll make sure that the ball is firmly in our court and not in the investor's court.
Fantastic. And on the money side then, and going back to the software, what kind of barriers did you face on the software side? It wasn't a lack of money, it was more a lack of finding the talent locally? In terms of the engineering talent?
I would say a bit of both, to be honest. The problem that we had initially was exactly what you said, that we couldn't find the appropriate talent to get them into the company. But when you're bootstrapping, it's hard to get high value talent. So we had €250,000, €500,000 in contracts on the table for this taxi solution we were building. Right. We'd been to 30 taxi bases, we'd interviewed 600 taxi drivers across Ireland. We have a database of taxi companies everywhere in Ireland and everywhere in the UK. I mean, we literally have thousands of pieces of information.
So you sold the product before you had the product?
Pretty much to a point, but it didn't restricted us, because once we got to 60, 70, probably 75% of the product being developed, we realised the gap that we were after creating for ourselves, which is we probably needed 75 to 100k in funding or in money revenue to get the product where we needed it to go to make it really scalable. So we could have built a bespoke solution which we could have made 40, 50k out of, but then we would have had to do that for 2 or 3 companies just to get the cash reserve so that we could have scaled the product efficiently or effectively. And the lead time was 18 months. Then you had Uber, Halo, Lyft, you had all these other companies
raising billions of dollars.
Yeah, and there was a big conference up in Belfast lately, MoneyConf. And one of the primary things, I wasn't at it, but on Twitter, one of the primary things I got from it was they were talking about if you're entering a market space and you want to take on companies, so we're taking on you, you're after taking 5 million. If I'm egotistical enough to think that I'm going to take on 1 million and be that creative, to be that dynamic over you, it's not going to work. If your competitors are taking 3 to 5 million, you should be taking 3 to 5 million, because you have to be able to compete with them, and then your innovation will allow you to excel further than them. And after listening to that and looking back, we can see the mistakes we made. You know, primary one being we didn't have the right team. We didn't look at investment in the right way at the time. Like, if we weren't taking investment, we had to sign partnership contracts with 2 or 3 companies that would have allowed us scale that. They would have given us the cash flow to build it and getting the team to make it a scalable product. And then experience, really, being honest. You know, and right now we have a much more solid team. We're much more confident in our own skills and capabilities. But it took 2 years to get to that point where we fully understand who we are now and what we have to try and do to be successful with.
Startups are all about learning, and it sounds like you've learned a huge amount. And on the note of learning, we're here in the University of Limerick Nexus Innovation Academy. Tell a little bit more perhaps about when did you move in, at what point in your startup journey?
So when we set up as a company called Alt Ireland. So we were, like, the goal was, my business partner is a genius, like, he's a web developer, like software developer, he can develop apps, etc. He self-taught how to code since he was 11 years of age. I mean, he's on the ball. But what the goal was at the start was for us to go, he to create websites and me go sell those websites at a huge markup. But then we looked at the landscape in Limerick, and it was saturated with web developers. So the long and short was, we joined the Limerick Enterprise Acceleration Programme, which is a startup programme here in Limerick. We won the company to watch out for, in the company of the year on that programme. And then we got accepted onto New Frontiers, and we had a choice to position ourselves in Nexus or the Hartnett Centre. And basically half of our team were from UL. We lived out in UL. It just made sense to locate here. So that was really probably a year into our journey. We were just starting New Frontiers. We were still working on software at the time. We were bringing 2 solutions, Taxi Chief and Roster Chief, onto New Frontiers to try and iterate them and develop them and get our business plan ready, basically. But we've moved out to Nexus, and Nexus has just been a whole new vibrant society of startups. Like, you know, it's just going from strength to strength. There's momentum.
What's so great about Nexus? Is it a function of being in a university? Is it attracting talent on the technology side? What is it?
Both. It's definitely, like, you can take advantage of so many resources here on campus, from lecturers to data that they're collating around topical around problems that you're trying to solve, but also the talent. I mean, you've people, students coming in and out here. We get entrepreneurship, marketing, business lecturers coming over saying, have you any projects we want to get the students to work on? So you can get research done. You can get substantiation around problems. Is this going to work? Is this not going to work? What do key market or key industries within markets think? Big parts of it, but also the support. Like Nexus is, we brought the first 2 startup weekends down to Limerick. We've run them here in Nexus. It was free of charge. They were just wonderful. They located us here. They got people from UL in and involved. They got us nice PR on a local and national scale. So it's really the support structure, the type of people that are in the building, the startups. You know, you've some of Limerick's top startups in here, like Martina Skelly from Yellow Schedule, JP Hartigan from Shadowman Sports, who are doing huge work in America. Like, and then the local talent, the students that are in and out, the projects that they want to work on, and you know.
So the whole university really rocking in behind the Nexus, and then you guys working together to collaborate and to iterate. Pretty
much, and then they got in the new CEO, Gert O'Rourke, and Gert has just been a breath of fresh air. You know, she's really reinvigorated the centre. We have new meetings going on about connecting with other startups within the centre.
She invited Irish Startup TV down as well.
Yeah, you know, it's really dynamic. Like, in the startup scene in Limerick 3 years ago in comparison to now, it's not the same.
Because you're really at the forefront of that. I remember it must have been about 3 years ago that I met you, and you'd come all the way up, and I was incredibly impressed. I'd only come at about 100 metres down the road, but you'd come all the way from Limerick on the bus, and your enthusiasm after a long bus journey was just incredible.
I mean, you pick a startup founder, you name a startup founder to me that isn't electric about meeting new startup people, and I'll be shocked.
Yeah, that's true.
This is our lifeline. This is what we do. So I loved travelling around Ireland. I mean, go back to that stage when we first met. I was probably travelling 8-10 times a month across Ireland, Galway, Cork, Waterford, Dublin, just to meet new startups, just to help BlueChief to build our brand and get integrated into the startup community. And that was fantastic. But the startup scene in Limerick was pretty slow. Don't get me wrong, there were still brilliant startups here 3 years ago, some huge startups. but it was pretty slow. So there wasn't really many meetups going on. There wasn't really much dynamic interaction between startups. So now we have a host of things. You know, we have Startup Weekend, we have WASup, the Wild Atlantic Startup. Last night we had our first ever Young Innovators meetup in Limerick. 25 people turned up, which is good starting point.
That's a great start.
And you know, Nexus ran their own initiative as well called Startup Mania, which was like 4 or 5 tiers of different things like finance for startups, marketing for startups, building your team, and they got in guest speakers. And you know, when you have this amount of events going on, this amount of collaboration and integration, it can only enhance the startup community. And yeah, we're very proud to have been at the forefront of that. We're heavily involved in 70, 80%, 90%, 100% of the startup initiatives in Limerick.
That's incredible. I can feel your energy. I'm actually feeling energized by talking to you right now. It's very, very inspiring.
You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
At the core of it. Like there's people like Gene Murphy up in Dublin, Tracy Keogh up in Dublin, Robbie Skews down in Cork, Will Martin, DC, John Peavoy. No, these are people who have set the foundation for people like me to come along. You know, they have run events. Like when we done Startup Weekend for the first time in Limerick, it was Gene that invited me up to Dublin. I'd never been to a Startup Weekend, and you get to see what they're doing, and you're like, this needs to come to Limerick. And once you're that passionate about where you're from, and I am about Limerick, and once you have the network around you, like Gene, like Tracy, like John, like I mentioned, it's very easy then to sort of build something or, you know, launch something. Like that startup, the Young Innovators Initiative we launched, like I sat down last week for an hour and a half. I built a landing page website off Wix because I don't know how to develop properly. I wasn't going to annoy my business partner.
Nothing wrong with Wix.
No,
Squarespace is a great choice as well.
I literally had a choice between both. I was like, Wix was drag and drop instantly. I was like, we'll go with that one. Set up a Twitter profile, set up a Gmail account, and now we've 80 emails. No,
really?
The goal is to get it to 200. But
Okay.
we've 80 emails from across different industries, it's not just startups. So we have some people that are involved in accountancy, multinationals, in legal. And the goal is to just create a dynamic community of young people under the age of 35. And don't get me wrong, I've been giving out that this is ageist, I agree to a point. But also you have to look at it from the other side. There has never been a youth initiative for young ambitious people in Limerick. And in the space of 2 or 3 hours, we now have the capacity to go and build something with somewhat authority that we can actually make this happen. So a week later, we have our first ever meetup. There's 25 people there. The Limerick Leader are going covering a big article on it next month.
It's tremendous. I think it's really important to call out the fact that the average sort of entrepreneur who's successful is probably 35 and experienced.
Definitely.
But the Collison brothers are the outliers, and James Welton as well, guys that have built global companies. And these are the guys we have to support and not forget about. And it's really good that you're kind of saying, I suppose, you know, could we have the next Collison brothers and the next Welton? Could we have them from Limerick? Why not?
Well, there's this guy.
Actually, the Collison brothers are from Limerick, aren't they?
Depending on who you say. Some people say Tips.
From Tipperary, educated in Limerick.
We're
so.
keeping it in Limerick. You better believe that. There's this guy, Chris Byrne. He runs a great startup called SensorPro. And Chris exited some company for millions upon millions years ago. But Chris is really astute. And one of the points he made a year ago, and it really resonated with me, was he gave a talk and he talked about how Skype and Angry Birds and these other companies, they weren't from London, they weren't from Israel, they weren't from Silicon Valley or Tel Aviv, they weren't from the big startup areas, not Texas, they weren't from any of these, they were from different countries. So the point that resonated with me from what he said was simply, you can build a global company from anywhere in the world. You just have to believe you can do it. Put the right infrastructure around you, the right support network, have the right vision, and execute. And I firmly believe that. So like I believe that we could, like Kieran Norman up here, Peter Hunt, there's some big, JP Hartigan who's doing huge stuff in San Fran, like with Shadowman. There's some big companies in Limerick, and there's some potentially huge startups here. So I'm married to Limerick, you know, I'm married to the startup community here, and I really think we can build a global company from right here in Limerick, and I think we'll be one of them with BlueChief. Like.
I love that vision, and on the subject of vision and also of connectivity and global scale, tell us a little bit about Startup Gathering, what it means for you and what your involvement is.
Well, you said you got energy off me a while ago. This gives me huge energy.
Really?
I mean, this is they're terming as one of the largest global startup initiatives this year, and Ireland is doing it.
Yeah.
Just take a second, like, you know, it's huge.
Ahead of the curve, eh?
Yeah, and we're doing it here in Ireland, and it's Startup Ireland with Owen Costello and Jean Murphy again, you know, and the support that they've got from the government, etc. And Gillian Barry's running it here in Limerick. It has huge potential to impact the startup community nationally and internationally. I mean, I'll give you an example, right? They've done the launch of the Startup Gathering in the Clarion Hotel in Limerick. There was 89 people at it in Limerick, which was the highest number based on the analytics they gave afterwards for any of the events. I live streamed 20 minutes of it. 986 people tuned in for the launch of the Startup Gathering. And
So
the majority of them,
hunger.
yeah, the majority of them were international though. And from that, 20 people came on the thread and said they wanted to come to Limerick for the Startup Gathering. These are international people working in startups.
Wow.
So we live stream something on Periscope. They want to come. That shows the reach. That shows the potential. But for us personally, we're delighted to be involved. I'm on the steering group here in Limerick. They just had a meeting, we just had a meeting there last Friday, Tuesday. There's 3 or 4 more coming in the next month, so we'll be given little tasks that we have to do. But for us personally, BlueChief, it's down to, we're going to run 2 or 3 events. We're going to run a startup weekend again. We're most likely going to run an event called Social Savvy, which is an event around apps and productivity tools for startups, SMEs, multinationals. And there's this big chance that we're going to run WASup again. Maybe a smaller version, but we're planning for Ireland's first entrepreneurship festival next June. But this will be a precursor to test it. So we're probably going to run 3 events for it. I think it's got huge value for Limerick startup community. I mean, if we can pull together the different industries within Limerick and get a focus on startups for a whole week, because it's Bank of Ireland Business Week, or it's Enterprise Week that week as well in Limerick. So you have Enterprise Week, the Startup Gathering, probably 10 to 15 events, all from different industries, and real collaboration going on. I mean, the potential is unlimited.
So you see, there's a huge number of areas where this is going to benefit, but the collaborative piece and the possibility of shining a particular focus on Ireland and on Limerick, you see that as being super important to get the name out there about it, get the word out there globally about Limerick and about Ireland as a startup destination.
Perfect. Yeah, literally. I mean, one of the weakest things Irish people have, I think, is we're so bad at radiating how good we are. You know, if I give you compliments, no, and it's not a good thing. And I get how you don't want to be egotistical, I get how that, but that doesn't work. Like, if you go to America and you tell someone they're great, they say thank you very much. If you go to the UK and tell someone they're brilliant at something, they say thank you very much, and they may tell you how even better they are at it. But in Ireland, it's, oh no, I only done a small bit.
Yeah,
we undersell ourselves. Yeah. And I'm really happy, like you mentioned, that there's a global initiative that's starting in Ireland that's going to shine a focus on the real talent, the real opportunities that are here in Ireland, across the 5 locations, across Limerick, Waterford, Cork, Galway, Dublin. I mean, it's a big chance. It's a big opportunity. But now the simple point is, because ideas are one thing, but like I said, like Chris mentioned, you execute. Like and I know this is the inaugural one, but I don't take that as an excuse. We have an opportunity here to showcase Ireland as one of the startup capitals of the world, and I think we have to go do that. Like, we have to achieve this.
As a final question, in the 1980s, I think it was, the front page of The Economist was a picture of somebody begging on a street in Ireland, and the caption was "Ireland poorest to the poor." And around, I think it was maybe the mid-90s, there was another feature of The Economist, and it was a picture of Europe and a light shining on it, and a light shining specifically on Ireland, and Ireland the shining light of Europe. If you had an option to pick the cover of The Economist magazine for 2020, what would that image look like for you?
That's a good question. It would have to be, in my mind, and again, I'm obviously have my own viewpoint on it, simply being that it has to be around entrepreneurship. Like, this jobs action plan, the government, what they're talking about supporting entrepreneurship, the new parties coming on saying they want to support business. To me, entrepreneurship is key. Okay. And there's loads of other industries that add huge value to Ireland and our economy, but I particularly think, based on Irish characteristics, based on what we've done across the world in companies and startups like Liam Casey, etc., the Collisons, etc., I would love it to be something around startups, whether you had logos of startups there, whether you had startup people, like they have this thing, Enterprise Ireland one, which is the top startups in Ireland coming, there's a big group photo, something like that. Something where people are smiling, it's positive, it's around entrepreneurship, it's around startups, and something that people will look at and go, that's the way the Irish are.
Fantastic. So we will set the scene as a culture of innovation and of entrepreneurship, and we're going to say that's what Ireland is. It's about entrepreneurship.
That's what we do. That's what we do. That's what we're the best at, and that's what we'll continue to execute.
Well, maybe if you could pull out a bit of Photoshop when you finish at Wix and you could knock something up for us and we'll see what we can do.
Definitely.
Fantastic. Fair play to you, man. Thanks a million, James.
Much appreciated.